So I'm very pleased to be here today speaking to everyone. And Norm, I want to thank you and Reverend Barb for your perfect words that really set the tone and already deliver the message that I hope to deliver today. I'm going to begin by telling you that when I began thinking about what I was going to say today, I found myself faced with the gremlins that want to take over whenever I'm in a situation where I'm to speak in front of people like today. Speaking in front of people, being the center of attention, these are not things within my comfort zone. And when I'm facing doing just that, my gremlins make themselves known and they threaten to take over. I want to run away and hide and disappear. So what am I talking about? What are gremlins? Dr. Sid would refer to them as the inner bully or the inner critic. Others, that inner dialogue or the voices of the shadow self that are rife with falsehoods. In science of mind terms, the thinking which does not serve us and the beliefs that underlie that thinking. Those voices that plague us with self-doubt that can be so loud at times, and the allure of the false beliefs that have run our lives for so long, that in mistaking them for the truth of who we are, have become so powerful that we are stuck or incapacitated. And when the gremlins remain unrecognized, silenced, or disowned, they remain in control year after year, and they can even make us physically ill. Manifest in some disease like multiple sclerosis or MS like they did in my body many, many years ago. And thank God for the teachings of this science of mind for Ernest Holmes. So we all have gremlins, or am I wrong?
Yes.
Great, right? Let me tell you more about this, because this universe that is always for us keeps putting these kinds of opportunities in my path over and over again. The opportunities to step up and step out that I'm triggered by. And my awareness that the gremlins have gotten more problematic, that unresolved shadow world of the inner child who is anxious and afraid to show herself, is getting in the way of living. But these things are finally shifting as I'm learning to accept and honor all the parts of myself in appropriate ways. And in doing that, from a place of conscious awareness, I'm able to make more empowered choices. Reverend Margaret began this series, Into the Mystic, 2 weeks ago in her talk titled, Diving into Our Connection with Source. Let's revisit what she said in her introduction. And she mentioned that she touched on this last week as well. She said, truly, for each one of us, there is a call. There is something within us that is calling us to be deeper, to be more than what we are. A deep longing, a longing of the soul to connect, to commune with something so much greater, so much more powerful. In the words of Ernest Holmes, the divine urge within us. He said the divine urge within us is God's way of letting us know that we should push forward and take that which is awaiting our demand. We all want to feel that our lives have meaning and purpose, that what we are doing in the world matters, that we're making a difference. Is this true for you?
Yes.
And this is a huge part of that deep longing that is within all of us. And one of the ways that it can be fulfilled is through service. We might call that service divine purpose, a calling, sacred service, and there are many ways to serve, many ways to speak of service, many ways to fulfill this longing. But sometimes identifying the actions and or knowing the direction we want to move in is difficult. So how is this innate longing within all of us fulfilled? This is what we'll talk about today. Cultivating an awareness of our divine purpose, or our purpose of being here in general. I think we could all agree that when speaking about our purpose or purposes for being here, there's not necessarily just one purpose for any one of us, and that the purpose or purposes for which we have incarnated can change over time and throughout our lifetimes. But it is so important for the purpose of today's talk to recognize the basic fact that it is in fulfilling a purpose that the longing within each of us is fulfilled. So here's the thing that applies to both the trouble that I was having with writing this talk. This is version number, I have no idea, so many. And the struggle I've been having with understanding my divine purpose, what it was at a particular crossroad in my life recently. Very simply put, I had gotten caught up in the idea that there had to be something big, something really important, something beautiful, something really unique and special. I was caught up in the ego mind, or as my daughter says, the ego monster. And my gremlins were keeping me trapped there. Once I began to acknowledge them, once I began to make room for them on the bench next to me, once I allowed them to be seen and to play on the playground, swing on the swings with me, instead of ignoring them or trying to expunge them, ironically, when I invited them out of the shadow, they began to settle down. Those voices were saying, among other things, who am I to think that I could fill in the blank for yourself? They just needed recognition, acceptance, equal time, and space. I had been trying to make this talk into something really special, but as long as I was coming from the head, my ego mind, instead of my heart, there was no way for a meaningful way forward. So this talk is an example of what I call reality spirituality, the reality spirituality that I love about Joyful Gathering and about our teachings. The fact that they relate to all the aspects of our being and of who we are, of the divine beings that we are having this human experience. It's like this. I had a lump of clay in front of me. In this example, the clay was the unwritten talk. And the same can be said about discerning of divine purpose. Wow. There are so many possibilities of how that clay might be molded, and that's really overwhelming, just for starters. I had this idea that I needed to make the lump of clay into something beautiful, worthy, something extraordinary and fantastic, so that you would think I am beautiful, worthy, extraordinary, and fantastic. I worked on it and worked on it. My intention being that it would be something special, that you would be really impressed with me. But when I finished all those other versions, they still just looked like lumps of clay, no matter what I did. But when I understood that I was trying to force something into that clay that wasn't there, when I became aware that the clay needed to speak, and that it couldn't take the form that was meant for it because my intention wasn't coming from a place of authenticity or heart-centeredness, things began to change. When I got out of my head, when I got out of the way, the clay was able to let me know what shape it wanted to take, and something more meaningful began to emerge. The cultivation of an awareness of divine purpose for each of us can feel like it begins from an unmolded lump of clay within which there are so many possibilities that we can't see the forest for the trees. Indeed, the fulfillment of a purpose may come in any number of shapes or sizes and take many forms, and often will not take the form that we had envisioned for it, or the form that we think it should take. And though it can be what we might call a big thing, oftentimes it's not. In fact, oftentimes we do not recognize those small things that we do on a daily basis as one of the many ways that we are all fulfilling our divine purposes for being here every day. A divine purpose doesn't necessarily come as a vision of a flaming chariot rushing down the street, or a burning bush, though it can be. But more often than not, it will come through the still small voice within that, let's face it, we often ignore or don't give credence to. Our divine purpose may come to us as a thought, as intuition, or in the words of Greg Levoy from his book, Callings, through symbols, dreams, symptoms, happenstances, and synchronicities. We tend to make things way more complicated than they need to be. It's like my son told me many times. We'd be doing something together, and I don't recall the exact conversation, but I'd probably be struggling with something or telling him something about something that I was feeling challenged by, and he would say, "Mom, get over yourself." He would say this in a very non-judgmental, accepting way that was part affection and part teasing. And he told me this many times, and I still hear his voice. Getting over ourselves, getting over our bloated nothingness, is one of the ways that we can move into that place of connection with the higher self that allows us to live, move, and have our being as authentic, integrated, integrous beings, the ones that we came here to be. And again, it's an awareness of the voices of the gremlins, of letting them be heard and knowing that sometimes they have things to say that we may need to hear. And then inviting them to say, take a seat in the back of the bus anyway. That lets us get going. God has given you very specific gifts and talents and strengths. Maybe you're a math whiz or a wise counselor. Maybe you're a great listener. Maybe you have a mind for electronics or business. Maybe you're great at organizing people or getting things done. God's purpose for you probably involves things you're already good at. What things are you passionate about? God works at the intersection of our gifts and passions. Where do your gifts meet your passions? Focus on what makes you happy and choose to do things that make you happy. Embrace whatever makes your heart sing. The thing is that when the shadow side is ruling our thinking and our beliefs, we lose sight of the truth of who we really are. We start believing what our feelings are telling us. And the truth is that it is easy to get caught up in the illusion that how we are feeling is who we are, especially when we're facing something painful or challenging. This is part of the human condition. But every day, in any way that we embody and actualize what Reverend Margaret spoke about last month, when we are what she calls love in action, when we are the presence of that is love, when we are the presence that heals, the presence that illuminates, when we are the light. And whenever and wherever and however we shine that light, we are fulfilling a divine purpose. The phrase divine purpose can be used interchangeably with life purpose, soul purpose, higher purpose, soul mission, and others. And the thing about fulfilling that purpose, however one defines it, is that though, like I said before, it need not be something big, it can be something big. It can be as big as any one of us can conceptualize and embody. But there is no big or small in God. So keep in mind, as I said before, also that it should be something you're drawn to, that you're good at, that you're passionate about, something that makes your heart sing. And ask yourself these questions. What lights my fire? What do I enjoy doing? What would I do more of if nobody else was judging? What did I love doing as a child? And fundamentally, look for the answers to these questions. What is right for me, and where am I willing to be led? And don't be surprised if you're led somewhere that you didn't expect to end up. If you're led to the edge of your comfort zone and challenged to go beyond that edge, risking stepping into the unknown, and know that ultimately there is nothing to do, only to be the presence of love, compassion, understanding, forgiveness, both for oneself and for others. I was recently struggling with an unfulfilled longing within myself. Just a few short months ago, on August 8th, the 6th anniversary of my son's death. When he died, I made a pledge that despite his death, I would not also be victim of the disease of addiction that took him, and that I would live fully like he had done, that I would be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. And I've been struggling with the question of how to identify and fulfill this pledge for 6 years that day as I walked on the beach. I had allowed the gremlins to be informing my lack of action. Who did I think I was that I could help others, that I could make a difference, and so forth? But that morning, I just intuitively knew that it was time and that I was ready. I decided to intentionally move forward in spite of my fears and follow a thought that had been in the periphery of my mind for some time, one that had been dancing around at the edge of my consciousness for a while. The tide was turning. The long and the short of the story is that I'm now volunteering and leading guided meditation in a treatment center where my son was once a patient himself, no less. Initially, my intention had been that even if this only offered 1 or 2 patients in the group each week a few minutes of peace, that would be enough. But I've discovered to my surprise that no, actually that is more than enough. That's really big. So this experience is incredibly humbling, and it is I am the one who's filled with gratitude, the one who's receiving so much. And this is a prime example of the fact that through service, through doing something that is meaningful and purpose in our lives, that the longing within ourselves is fulfilled. And just to mention, this story also begs recognition of the creative power of our thinking, of our teachings. That clear intention I had invited the activity of spirit, the creative intelligence, the energy that is back of all things to take over, and it did. And within a week, I received a phone call and the opportunity to do just what I wanted to do. The universe had rushed in to make it happen, to support me and to fulfill me. And despite the gremlins who were saying, oh my God, what have you done now? I was able to move out of the way, to remind myself that this was not about me, and to let it unfold, to trust, and to move forward, despite my fears. So let's make 2 additions to our spiritual principles. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. My dad always said that. And number 2, get over yourself. Get out of the way. Get out of the way of the activity of God. Here are the lessons. It's not complicated or difficult. Life is not complicated or difficult. Spirit is not complicated or difficult. When we are coming from the higher self, when we are in service to a divine purpose, to the many purposes that we've come here to fulfill, we need not disinherit the gremlins. All the while remembering that simply by embodying what it means to be love in action in any way, listening to the still small voice of intuition versus the ego voice, coming from our hearts versus our heads, living by our own code of honor, standing in our own truth, we are giving meaning and purpose to our lives at the same time that we're serving others. In order to cultivate an awareness of your purpose or purposes, ask yourself, what is right for me? Where am I willing to be led in any given moment? And have faith in the universal intelligence that is back of all things, and trust that your purpose or purposes will make themselves known when the time is right and when you are ready. But what does your love of play want to be? Get out of the way and keep it simple, and allow it to become what it is desiring to be birthed through you. So before we close, I would just like to take a moment. This is not a meditation, this is just a moment of going within. I'd like you to take in the following words. If you'd like, I invite you to close your eyes. And taking a breath. The breath that allows you to go within and purposefully, intentionally connect with your higher self. And take this moment to connect through the breath. And what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Trust what you're seeing, hearing, and feeling. This is the part of you that is always connected to Source. It is filled with love, compassion, and wisdom. And it holds no judgment or fear. And so now coming back, remember as we close today, that God is, therefore I am. This is the most fundamental premise of our teachings. And that urge, that longing that is within you is God, Spirit, infinite intelligence. Whatever name you use to refer to it, desiring to express through you. Seeking expression through you in beautiful, unique, and individualized ways through the beautiful, unique individual that you are. The desire that you have to be of service, that brings meaning and purpose to your life, is the Spirit within leading you to fulfill your purpose, calling forth that which you already are. It is the lump of clay that wants to take form, to be molded through your hands, your eyes, your mind, and most especially through your heart. We are here to see and to be seen, to love and to be loved, to heal and to be healed. And this longing and the actions taken to fulfill it, no matter how big or small, is God in action, love in action being fulfilled through you. It is you as your purest form of light. You are the light, I am the light, we are the light. May we all radiate our light freely, lovingly, joyfully. That is what's being called forth. And so it is. Thank you.